What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Adventures Tower, and we've got some controversy. The newest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, is out. I personally love the movie, but I have to acknowledge not everybody loved it as much as I did. In fact, from what I'm seeing out there, there's a good bit of controversy, a lot of mixed opinions about the movie, and that is kind of juicy, kind of spicy. So I want to break all of this down, try to give air and explanation for why some people have mixed feelings about the movie, and then we'll ultimately arrive on why everybody's wrong about the film except for me. And of course, other people that agree with me. For the record, and I'll probably restate this and explain this in coming streams and in other videos, but I saw Multiverse of Madness for the second time, and I can honestly say it is my second favorite MCU movie, right behind Infinity War. I absolutely love the film, no cap. But let's talk about some of the controversy. And again, this is just my opinion. I put a tweet out there asking people to explain why they didn't like it if they did it. And there's a lot of interesting replies to that tweet. I'm actually going to go over a few of them in this video. But here's the thing that I find really wild. There seems to be three major camps that have problems with the movie. The first camp of people are people that don't like what was done to Wanda, mainly that she went as Darkseid as she did, or she was one-dimensional. Because I can completely acknowledge that she is pretty one-dimensional in the movie, like a good horror villain should be. She just has her motivation, wants what she wants. There's other magic at play with the corruption of the Darkhold, but yeah, she's gone a bad way. And for some people out there, they're saying that this is totally unearned, that after WandaVision, this doesn't make a lot of sense. I've even heard people say that it's a retcon of what happens in WandaVision, and I just gotta say, I feel like maybe we watch different shows. You see, one of my complaints about WandaVision was that it didn't actually feel like Wanda was learning anything, and she kept making more and more mistakes. Even in that final episode, she goes kind of back and forth between controlling the people, wanting to save her family, realizing her family's fake, and having to let them go, but still making Agatha believe a totally different life than she had. So at no point in WandaVision did I actually feel like she was taking beats that maybe a hero would take, or even things that happen in the comic books. And that's because this was a literal villain origin story. That's what WandaVision is, especially with the context of the post-credit scene. Yes, we're meant to understand and empathize with Wanda's trauma, which makes it compelling as she goes on this murder rampage, crazy town adventure in Multiverse of Madness, because you cannot justify what she does in this movie. We can feel her pain. We can understand where that pain comes from, but you can't empathize with her, and that's because she's a villain. She has quite literally crossed the line, and I thought it was bold for Marvel to do this, and I thought it was executed amazingly in the film. And one more thing on this before we move on. Most comic book fans have sort of just been waiting for the other shoe to drop with Wanda the whole time. Like, in the comics, Wanda does super shady, horrible things, House of M, and other things beyond that, and there are Avengers to this day that don't trust her. Now, she gets a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth chances in the comic books, but it's sort of a meme at this point. Like, Wanda's horrible, and she's very, very powerful. She's like one of the shadiest and most dangerous characters in Marvel Comics, and she even gets down-powered at one point in Marvel Comics, and people still don't trust her. But I do acknowledge that this isn't exactly the way they treated Wanda in the MCU, and for many fans out there, this probably comes as a shock, and it feels like it's weird, this sort of hard turn that she takes. But for other folks like myself, this feels like a punchline to a joke that's being set up for the entirety of the MCU, and a joke that I was frankly waiting for that punchline. Like, this was exactly what I thought they'd do with Wanda. It's perfect for her character. Like, she's not this admirable, awesome character in the comics. She's unstable, incredibly powerful, vindictive, and, well, kind of horrible. And definitely scary, like so crazy that good heroes like Hawkeye and Wolverine actually think the universe would be better if they killed her. That's who Wanda is. That's who the Scarlet Witch is. And in a weird twist of fate, there also seems to be this other camp that for almost totally opposite reasons doesn't like the movie. They don't like that Wanda is this powerful. Now, this crowd, generally speaking, seems to just think that the idea of making Wanda this powerful or making America Chavez, as powerful as she is somehow diminishing Steven, or part of this weird agenda to sort of push female characters. Now, obviously, representation is a thing for Marvel. You'd have to be daft to think that wasn't something they were trying to accomplish, but I always kind of take the stance that I want to see how it's executed. I accept that this is a thing that some people care a lot about. Therefore, a big corporation should probably care about it as well, right? It's par for the course. Despite my personal feelings about it, I accept it as a reality of pop culture these days. What I care about is the execution. By the way, very similar thing happening right now, according to the Obi-Wan Kenobi leaks, and I might go into a video or explain on a different stream why Marvel, in my opinion, handled this movie really, really well with these kind of concepts of representation and trying to inject people into story, and the Kenobi show did not, at least according to the leaks. Regardless, this group of people seems to not like the film because, like, the Illuminati that was supposed to be really powerful just gets decimated by Wanda. Nobody can really stop Wanda. Wanda's way too OP, and then essentially America Chavez takes the day and wins. Let's start with America Chavez. I totally disagree with this take because, yes, America Chavez is central to defeating Wanda, which, by the way, Wanda defeats herself like most good comic book villains. And the idea of having Steven in this scene really saves it to me. I think that there's an allegory going on here about Stephen Strange, particularly 616 Stephen Strange. The idea that he can put faith into people, that he believes in America Chavez, and whatever he sees on that page of the book of Vishanti that appears in front of him before it disappears, it is, quote unquote, the thing he needed. And I think there's actually more to this whole idea with him trying to save America, who is, I think, a supernatural being, as stated by Wanda earlier in the film. Okay, so there's a lot going on in this scene. It's not as simple as new young Latina chick saves the freaking day, because she doesn't even save the day. She's aided completely by Steven, and Steven is there and engaged as a character during the whole sequence. There's a moment where America wants to stop what is going on, and Steven tells her, no, not yet, because he's still in control of this situation. And so for the sake of the character, I felt like they handled this type of a scene where, yes, America is going to be a part of the ending very, very well. It's executed in a way that I, as a big fan of Steven, I 100% feel that it was his victory just as much as America's, and really more Steven's victory. And as for the Scarlet Witch being too powerful thing, like this, I think kind of just comes from maybe either comic book ignorance or maybe just feeling like it's not earned. I can accept that people come at this stuff with a different perspective, but for me, I'm like, yeah, bro, that's the Scarlet Witch. Like, I said this on a stream, but it's totally true. Take almost any character out there in pop culture, Superman, Hulk, any crazy powerful character, and put them up against Wanda. And I'm telling you, in 99.9% of those scenarios, especially with where she's at this moment, she will win. Like, she could just say, no more Superman, and he's gone. No more Hulk, he's gone. Like, do you understand? Like, she's insanely powerful. That's why she's such a threat to reality, because she's very, very powerful and also unstable. That's a part of it. Now, the third group of people that sort of make up the folks that have a big problem seem to be Marvel fans that think that the multiversal aspects of this movie were not as cool as they could have been. Now, some of this comes from a lot of the crazy rumors and leaks that were out there before the film, but I also think some of this just comes from the idea of the multiverse from Spider-Man No Way Home being very, very crazy, with a ton of different villains, totally different Spider-Men that he's working with. And then going into Multiverse of Madness, I think maybe there was just this carryover of expectations for it to be that crazy. Now, look, let's be fair about this. Of course, part of this is absolutely on me and a lot of other YouTube channels and scoopers out there that talked about the different rumors and leaks that were happening for this film. I personally engage in this kind of content, and I will explain further in other videos like what I think happened, because obviously there was stuff cut not only from what they filmed, but there were ideas scrapped before they even went to film, probably something like a Ghost Rider, an Iron Man, or a Spider-Man. These are things that it's difficult to understand when they were removed from the movie, but they were removed from the film. For me personally, I can engage in all that sort of stuff, get excited about it, hyped up, but then also allow the movie to just be what it is and experience it for what it is. And I thought that the way the multiversal elements in this film were handled was brilliant because it didn't feel this weirdly like gratuitous cameo thing. It just felt like this is a distinct universe that has these distinct characters playing a major role in events that happen there. And I actually think they make brilliant usage of the small amount of time that these characters are on screen to establish them for Marvel fans, seeing them for the first time in the MCU, like Feige's version. And, that is awesome. But they also just feel totally organic to the scene. Like maybe some people wanted it to be more extravagant. To me, it felt just right. Like the perfect sort of preview. Look behind the curtain at all the crazy things that await us in the future content, because we're obviously headed towards Secret Wars right now, while also just doing enough to feel consistent and not overwhelm the narrative. So let's shift gears. Let's look at what some of you guys were saying on this tweet. By the way, definitely go follow me at The Den of Nerds on Twitter. You can engage in fun stuff like this. And I usually have a lot of fun tweeting and all that, okay? So Stevie says here, it was hyped up by the leaks, or rather, it was hyped up by the leaks, and people were expecting this massive multiversal movie after No Way Home. What they got was a hint of multiverse and something more personal instead of a big Avengers level spectacle, which the title suggests. Okay, so a couple interesting things going on here. Maybe Steve's kind of saying here that the title almost implies this craziness of the multiverse, and instead they just get a tease. That's kind of fair. And you know what's funny though too, and not to pick on Stevie because I love Stevie, but we'll see this kind of throughout these replies here, is that a lot of people are saying that that's the problem a lot of people have, but that's not the problem they have. So they're almost like speaking up for this phantom group of folks. I'm just not sure. I mean, I acknowledge there are people out there that do feel underwhelmed about it, and maybe others are seeing more of that. But on my tweet, I just saw a lot of people saying it's all a bunch of people that just wanted a cameo fest, but I'm not one of them. And I'm like, wow, you're speaking for other people. Anyway, let's keep going here. Yeah, Mike says, honestly, I think people expected more. The Multiverse of Madness didn't really have a ton of multiversal variants. I personally adore the movie, but I think because of the trailers teased Professor X, Captain Carter, and Marvel, they expected more cameos. I think that's true. I did see a lot of tweets around that time, and by the way, I kind of pulled the brakes. I pumped the brakes. I made that bet with Skylar, and a lot of people reached out to me and were like, bro, here's what it is. And I was like, ooh, okay. And so I recalibrated our content like for that week or whatever. But a lot of people like were saying after the trailers were out, like, if this is what they're showing us in the trailers, what's actually in the movie? Like I saw Matt Ramos say that. I saw New Rockstar say that. And I do think, unfortunately, a lot of people did sort of ride that idea that maybe there could have been more. And I would have loved for them to be more as well. But let's keep going here. I think a lot of people had issues with Wanda being the villain and the fact she could just kill so many people so easily. I love the movie, but that only thing I could see is the reasons fans have an issue with it. Yeah, I think that's fair, Cordy. And I agree. It's sort of those two camps of folks, right? Bad writing and Raimi's over-the-top style, shaky cam, crazy editing, weird directional choices that didn't work in the movie, like the implications of this movie and what the future could bring, but the movie itself was just a mess. Okay, so first of all, Barry, you're wrong, but also, to give you a fair shake, Barry, I do think there's something to be said for how Raimi this film is. I'm going to talk more about this in other videos and content, but I love how just artistic this movie is. It's a movie. Like, it's cinema. I think Scorsese would love it, if I'm being honest. But it's really, it's Raimi through and through. Like, the different transitions, the shaky cam, all of that sort of stuff. I personally loved it. I feel like it's brought together perfectly with this the kind of mise-en-scène kind of thing, with it all working together. But if you don't like that kind of style, then yeah, I can see why you didn't like it. Some people wanted the movie to be a cameo fest. I'm very happy with the cameos we got. Let's save the rest for Secret Wars. Yeah, so again, a lot of people speaking up for that crowd that I just don't know how many people are actually upset about that. I don't think that actually is making up a big portion of why people are upset. I'm not a Raimi fan, and I was concerned he came on board, but I think his style fit perfect with the movie. I was surprised how much horror elements were in the movie, and it made not appropriate for little kids. What's the outrage? Not wholesome Marvel movie? Yeah, maybe. I mean, dude, I will say this. I watched the film for the second time, right? And when Wanda kills Black Bolt and Reed, like, it was a little awkward in the theater. I think we had a much younger theater, and it kind of sucked the air out of the room. And you could tell, like, people were, like, shocked. And really, watch that scene again. Like, bro, it's bold they did that. Like, it's bold. I know it's not like hard R or like it shouldn't be crazy, but like, bro, it was nuts. And maybe some people, that was just a bridge too far. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's talk about this. The movie is kind of a mess. It shines best when they let Raimi do his horror thing. Everything else is pretty weak. The plot is muddled. Wanda's character arc is thrown out the window. Yeah, disagree hard. They ignored the consequences of Loki. Disagree with that. The Illuminati was wasted. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, man. It's kind of like a breakdown by breakdown. I just totally disagree with this take. People, I do think a lot of this like comes from this Wanda's character is thrown out the window. Like, I really think that's the core of what this dude is upset about. The plot is complex, but also just about Steven, really. Like, the plot, you visit a lot of concepts, you have a lot of fun adventures, but nah, man, like, the plot is not a muddled mess. I think the plot is strong. The narrative is even stronger. Like, the way you go through all of that is super strong. Together, these things create, in my opinion, a very, very tight ride that, like, dude, like, I love the movie. So I don't know, man, like, the plot is muddled. I would really need somebody to like explain to me how the plot is muddled. Okay, so here's an interesting one. So this Logan guy says the writing is absolutely atrocious. Raimi's style is over the top in all the wrong ways. The cameos were used as nothing but shock factor, wasting them and also hurting the decision to make MCU's Reed John. Horror was forced and poorly executed. Third eye shock. Okay, 5 minutes later. Yeah, I don't know, man. So I was basically like, can you explain what you mean by the writing is bad? Because again, I think this just, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to be rude, but it just really doesn't feel like you're saying anything of substance, right? And so then this guy follows up, okay, and he says, also felt the script made Wanda unnecessarily one-dimensional, when it could have easily avoided the hysterical woman trope by giving us a clear motivation for Wanda outside of her own emotions. But it's so weird to me. If she was trying to save her kids, I'd buy that more easily. Yeah, so I think that there's this thing going on where some folks, they bring in just how much they care about optics. And look, that's fair if you care about that kind of stuff, but it's not how I enjoy movies. That's not like, that's not, I think, relevant to the quality of the movie. Like, optics is this totally different sort of conversation. I think it's a conversation that can be had, but ultimately decisions have to be made to serve the story. Like, in my opinion, the story needs to be paramount. And so, like, I just don't agree, because I can agree with you that they made Wanda one-dimensional. But I think WandaVision is the path to get to that place, and she works as a force of nature in this film, and it drives the movie. It drives the narrative, and I think it's brilliant. And this whole idea of like hysterical woman trope, like, that just really feels like, again, optics, projecting of your political ideologies onto this piece of fiction. And look, you can do that if you want, but that's not how I enjoy stuff. You know what I mean? So this Logan dude comes in and says, I very much agree to this. So, like, again, I'm not trying to be a dick, but it feels like a lot of people are parroting just, you know, paint by numbers things you can say that are not good about a film, while really at the core having a problem with the way Wanda is treated, right? Because he's like, I very much agree to this. It would have been tough to bring it back around to her stopping herself in the end, but imagine if she wants America's powers because she found a universe where Billy and Tommy have no family and are in trouble. Oh my God, so cringe, dude. We're all on both sides at that point. But writing in hindsight is always easier. See, like, yeah, it's just, it feels really weird and cringe that opinion is out there. Movies are subjective. You can feel how you feel about movies. I do think it's interesting that this movie has the controversy that it has. I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that have like a really more nuanced reason that they don't like the film. But I do think it kind of boils down to a couple of different camps. The camp that's mad about the treatment of Wanda, which I think is whack. The camp that's mad because Wanda's too powerful, which I think is whack. And then there is a group out there that's disappointed because the movie didn't live up to their expectations, maybe of cameos, rumors, and things like that. Again, I'm not so sure how big that group of people actually is. And so, you know what would be helpful? Let me know in the comment section of this video, how do you feel about the movie? Is there a big reason you don't like it? Let me know all of your thoughts down there in the comment section.